Hey, Amanda here, and welcome to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And today I am excited to introduce you to Myrna Lainé-Hyppolite, who is the founder and chief financial empowerment partner at Empower Financial Wellness. Now, Myrna and I met in an incubator that we like to hang out in, and we hit it off immediately. And I knew I wanted to talk to her so much more about her zone of genius. So, of course, I had to invite her here onto the show so you could benefit from it. So, the thing you need to know about Myrna is that she is, I believe we said, the cutest nerd you've ever met. She is
Cutest,
a
yes.
financial wellness coach, yes, and wealth strategist. And she helps powerhouse women turn their income, their amazing income, into wealth. And friend, there is a big difference between those two things. She's an Ivy League graduate of Dartmouth College with both her bachelor's and master's degrees. She has extensive experience in finance, over 30 years of experience in various industries. She's been in investment banking, financial planning, corporate finance, and private equity. And her clients that come out of the investing group coaching program, they end up with a really solid and automated investment game plan that allows them to fast track their money growth. And she dispels myths, which is one of my favorite things we do here on the show. She simplifies the jargon and she provides her clients with an organized and simple way to manage and grow the wealth with the stock market. So I'm so excited that you're here, Myrna. Welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here, Amanda. It's really awesome. And, I love talking about the stock market and I love, reaching out to various women. And so I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me here. Stock market, like those are two words that freaked me out for the longest time. And I know our listeners, some do have some experience with the stock market. Many don't. Can you just take a beat and explain to me the reason that you are so passionate about women understanding how to be effective in the stock market?
It's really important because as women, we have a number of gaps, right? One, we tend to earn less than our male counterparts. That's one. And so there's a gap already that we need to make up when it comes to earnings. Number two, we tend to live longer than our male counterparts. The average life expectancy for a woman in the United States is about 81 years old. And so from retirement to 81 years old, that's a long period of time. So you have to know how to manage your money and you have to know how to grow wealth so that you have money and you don't run out of money and that you're not that person who is working at 75 when you don't want to work at 75. It's one thing if you want to work, but if you're don't want to work and you're 75 years old and you have to work, then that's a problem. So I find myself feeling really passionate about the stock market because it has a low barrier to entry. Anybody can start investing in the stock market. And there is no gap. You don't need thousands. One of the myths is that you need thousands of dollars to invest in the stock market, when that is simply not true. And establishing a pattern where you're investing on a regular basis can make the difference between you having enough till 81 years old versus not having enough. And so I'm really passionate about that because it is what I call a non-threatening way, let's say, and an easier way to be able to build wealth. It's investing in the stock market. And it's often underestimated because people think it's complicated, or they might think, oh my gosh, I need a lot of money to invest, or I need to be that investment banking analyst poring over balance sheet and income statement in order to know what to invest in. That doesn't have to be the case.
Myrna, I know you're not a financial advisor, right? So, disclaimer, folks, we're talking about wealth building. We're not giving you specific advice. That being said, how can somebody that's wanting, I literally got a message from a friend this week who wanted to know, should she be doing a Roth? Should she be doing a 401k? Should she be doing, and she was thinking about her future and she asked me, and I was thinking, I was like, girl, maybe I'm not the best person to ask, but it leads to another question, which is how can one know whether they are getting quality financial advice or education versus a bunch of noise? Because unfortunately are a lot of people who benefit from financially from having you make decisions that maybe for your circumstances aren't the best. So, how does somebody pull all that apart?
But you have to really do a little bit of research, right? And go with a trusted source. So somebody who has a relevant experience. So I myself, I've actually, I look young. I know I look young, but I do have over 30 years of experience doing this in various roles. And so you have to be able to figure out, does that person have experience? Because there are, to your point, a lot of experts popping up left and right saying they're investment experts, but they don't have anything to necessarily show for it. Is that investment expert? Do they have proof to their pudding? Do their clients have, good solid returns? Do they have a good solid portfolio, or are they just, living paycheck to paycheck? So you kind of have to vet that. There are resources out there if you want a financial planner, somebody who has a certified financial planning type of designation. So knowing what you need, it's just doing a little bit of research and maybe a word of mouth, right? So if you worked with somebody, you trust that person, then you can refer them over to someone who may be in need. So you have to do a little research.
That makes a lot of sense. And like thinking about my friend, thinking about myself too, like how important is it to talk to somebody that understands like how you earn income? And so what I mean by that is the situation for say an entrepreneur might be a little bit different than somebody who is a full-time employee. So would you say that that matters?
Yes, that does matter because there are options if you are, a W-2 employee, if you're self-employed, there are options that can allow you to invest in different ways, right? Depending on your actual status. And so it's important to know the designation, but I always say that the thing that's of primary importance, whether you are, self-employed, you have a business, or you have a W-2, the important thing is for you to invest and to start investing, no matter what. Because although there may be differences, the core issue of investing and building wealth that way is important. If you are an entrepreneur, knowing that you have to pay yourself. We always know that, you have to pay yourself. You can't work for free. Paying yourself is important, but a means to paying yourself is also investing because not only are you taking income and paying yourself a salary, but you're also taking advantage of the benefit of owning a business, which will allow you to invest more than, let's say, a W-2 person that doesn't have a 401k plan.
That's so good. Yeah, that's so good. And I think that also really highlights something important, which is you can spend all the time in the world worrying about did I make the right decision or did I do the right thing and not start. And if you don't start, you lose that the benefit of time and that's where we get the compounding and that's also where we get the experience, right? Just speaking for myself personally, when I look at the decisions I made that didn't pay off, whether it was in entrepreneurship or a wealth decision or something like that, the benefit of having the wisdom of actually doing the thing, whether it worked out or not, was so valuable. So then it really just helped my decision making in the future. So I remember when I very first started with the stock market, I probably need to take a look at your program, Myrna, to be honest with you. But like I just started really small. I started with like $20 a month. I did a really basic, like Robinhood kind of an account, which I know that, there's pros and cons to where you actually go to do it. But I just made the commitment. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna do it at a level of risk that is honestly in competition with my Starbucks habit, just so that I can I can learn and get started with that. So like what would you tell someone who's like, okay, fine, I believe you, I need to take control of my financial future. What's their first next step really?
I think you have to do a little bit of research. Either you work with a financial coach like myself. One of the things that I specialize in is breaking it down and making it simple because a lot of times people don't take action and some people won't even have the nerve to do the $20 a month like you did because they're afraid and they don't want to mess up and they feel, my goodness, I should know this stuff. I have letters in front of my name, in the back of my name. I have a successful business and I don't know how to invest. So sometimes there's a certain amount of shame that comes with that. So I break it down, make it simple. You can work with a financial coach, do a little bit of research. actually one of the resources that I'm going to give as part of, the show notes here we'll find is actually a quick guide to investing in the stock market. So if you need like a quick 5 steps, you're that person and you can take action, then that guide is for you. But the three things really that people need to understand when it comes to investing in the stock market and what makes a successful investor are: one, time. Like the more time that you have, you're investing over time, then that makes a big difference, right? If you're investing over 10 years, makes a difference versus you're investing over 10 months. Number two is consistency. So like you said, you invested that $20 a month, make that commitment, knowing what you're going to and put that aside. And sometimes I tell people it's as little as $5 a day. You can get in there, you can get engaged. And $5 a day, are you going to miss that? No, you probably spend more than $5 at Starbucks. By the time you get a double pump of something, this, that, and the third,
Exactly. Skip
you're
the
already
sugar,
there.
get the
Yeah,
stocks.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you need to be consistent. Make the commitment, whether it's, $20, $100, $200, what you're going to do every single month. And then three, it's a good rate of return. So you need to be invested in quality investments that are going to give you a return that's at least 10% a year. The stock market in the last 3 years has generated 20+% returns. So that's a great thing because we all know that there's been inflation and you want your money to grow faster than inflation. And so one tip that I want to give everybody on this call is that if you have a savings account and that savings account is generating less than 3%, first of all, you got to do the homework. Yeah, I do give homework. You have to go find out how much your savings account is generating in terms of interest. What's the interest rate on your savings account? And if it's less than 3%, you need to go visit your bank and say, what have you done for me lately? And what can you do for me? And move your money to something generating at least 3%. I say that because with inflation, we all know that $100 today is not buying the same things that it bought a year ago or 2 years ago. So you have
Tell
to
me about it.
protect your
Yeah.
money. Part of you are earning money. Part of your job is to protect that money and grow it. So those three things, a good rate of return, consistency, and time, those make for a successful investor.
Okay, so I'm definitely gonna ask this question, and it's so selfish. What do you say to a client who's maybe a little ADHD? Like we're a bit of a dopamine hound. Like what you're talking about makes perfect sense. I keep promising the ADHD. I keep promising I'm gonna make a mug that says "Dreamer" with a spreadsheet. So like what I'm hearing in this conversation is a lot of practical sense, like around the spreadsheet. It does make sense to know what rate you are getting of a return on something like your savings. High yield savings account. Wow. Like that's such an easy move to make. And a lot of people don't even know it's a thing they can do. But like the difference between something that's giving you 3% versus something that's like 0.5%, which is where I started before I knew about a high yield savings account, it adds up like quickly. And the dreamer part, right? So I think people actually do have a good amount of discipline in the sense that they keep going with the routine that they already have established. So now what we're talking about is like reallocating funds or making a change of the bank or making a change of how you're handling it and shifting your routine just a bit to start going towards this. Is there anything that you would recommend to somebody to help them like stay excited about it? Because it just has to grow, right? Like we have to keep it going. But how do you motivate? How do you keep it top of mind if this has not been your conditioning?
I think it's all about putting it on autopilot. And I tend to put
Don't even
that
manage it.
yes, and investing tends to be something that you put on autopilot and set it and forget it. So if you are that person that wants to be involved, that wants to understand how to invest, you can be that person. But there are certain things that you have to understand. So to me, investing in the stock market is kind of like food preferences. So what I may invest in may not be what you invest in. So you may be, vegan. I may like a nice piece of steak. You might be allergic to seafood. I might love it. So you have to know where you score before you even dip your toes in the world of investing. Because if you're that type of person where I say, okay, Amanda, the market went down 10% today, and you take to the bed and you're crying and you can't handle it, then you're not going to be the type that can invest in the types of things that I want to invest in, because I'm like, okay, the stock market goes down 10% a day. Maybe I want to scoop some more of an investment because I know that with the downside, there's also potential for upside. And although I look young, I probably got a good 10 years left in me as far as work is related. So I'm a little bit more aggressive, but you have to know where you fare. But you don't have to make it complicated, because the information is out there in terms of investments where you can invest in quality companies and just put it on autopilot. So if you're that person, you don't like the spreadsheets, or you are, ADHD, like you said, and you don't want to focus on one thing, just put it on autopilot, set it and forget it. And when you have time and when you want to come back to it, you can. But when you set that consistency, that time practice, and you just let it grow.
Myrna, what I'm so excited about in that answer is I'm like, she's saying exactly what I tell people when it comes to business building. So, for example, like when you're building your business, a lot of people have a hard time with consistency of their visibility. They have a hard time with being, seen regularly by new people and establishing those relationships. And then the business struggles because then their relating kind of looks like this. It's erratic and it's all over the place because it's following the dopamine, right? And so same thing in business. I'm like, have baseline systems, that are very automated, very easy to maintain, don't require a whole lot to still be there and to still do the thing. But then, let's call it 80-20, right? 80% of it is the standardized approach, 20% of it, that's where you get creative, and that's where you might take bigger risks like you are doing. And it's exactly the same when you're doing business. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, very cool.
Hey, I love the analogy. It is true, because you have to be consistent about it. And in business, it is the same, right? Not giving up and knowing that, at the end of the day, your consistency is going to pay off. It's the same thing with
Yeah.
investing.
One of the things that I also realized that led me to sacrificing some Starbucks budget was just the fact that when it comes to wealth building, you can do active income. So active income being like from the W-2 or from your business, maybe you're freelancing, maybe you're selling a product, but like you're generating this active income. And I know I was raised like to get good income, you get good job, right? So you're basically elevating the value of those hours that you're spending working. But then the conversation about what happens later was always very cursory here, like read this book. And then like, but it didn't really relate. Like I didn't really get it. And the thing that actually motivated me was realizing this, and that is when you own a stock, that's an ownership game. The only people in this world that really make money without having to trade time necessarily for it are the owners. And the owners get that because they're the ones that are taking the risk. So it's kind of like the way I think about it, and I'd be so curious about your perspective. The way I think about it is I'm like, well, the stock market is really a way that I can have a piece of ownership, and it's shared ownership across so many people. It helps to actually mitigate the risk as opposed to being the 100 shareholder for my business, which, there's going to be very sunny days, there's going to be really cloudy days. So what I realized is that ownership is the way. It's the only way that you really have your money make you money, versus trading time. And that was what sold me actually, is I was like, I'm practicing more ownership by being discerning about making, staking a claim and participating in something that literally anybody can participate in. I think that was the thing that really blew my mind about it.
Yes, and that's a very good point. The whole concept of trading time. So with the stock market, you don't have to work that extra hour in order for it to generate that wealth for you. And so knowing that you have something that allows you to make money in your sleep, that's going to keep growing your money without you having to put in extra time, that is game changer. And that allows you to have options. Because to me, what's the point of building wealth? You want to build wealth and you don't have to sacrifice your Starbucks budget. I always tend to preach that We're not talking about, pinching pennies and trying to sacrifice because I firmly believe that financial wellness is important. That's the name of my company, Empower Financial Wellness. You have to be able to live a life that brings you joy, where you're doing the things that are important to you. You can't just live a life to pay the bills. Yeah, I'm making income. Oh, so I can pay the mortgage. No, I'm making income so I can do the things that bring me joy, the things that allow me to live in my purpose. And so the stock market does allow you to do that at a much faster clip than you're working, but you also have to discipline to invest so that that money can grow and give you more options that your future you will thank you for.
1,000,000%. It's tough to think about, but your active earning years are limited. Like that you don't have everything doesn't stay the same. I think about one of my favorite quotes. It was actually the first quote I ever memorized as a kid. It was Aristotle who said the only constant is change. And it's so easy to just get into the rhythm of things and find yourself slipping paycheck to paycheck. And the thing is that it's so easy to justify. So easy to justify because you can just take the drama of your life and be like, look, there's where my money went. But if you don't have that conscious plan, and if you're not like building for that future where you won't have the active income in place, like, it makes me shudder. It makes me glad that you're here actually talking about this. Yeah.
Yes, it's of critical importance because people tend to sometimes say, "Okay, I'll get to it later," or "Once I can figure it out." Later really is now, because the sooner you start investing, the sooner you can get to a place where your investments are growing and will pay off in the future.
Yeah, I love it. Myrna, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciated this walkthrough and the really simple step by step. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think it's so important for us to go out there and to invest, especially as women. As women, we do tend to be better investors than men. That's what research actually shows that that is the case. So we shouldn't be intimidated. We should just go out there and do the investment. And if you need a coach, I'm happy to really teach women how to build that wealth and turn their amazing income into wealth.
Love that. And, dear listener, if you're listening to this, you're like, I don't know, another coach. I got to tell you something. And that is that for every major pivot that I have had in my life, I'm a reader. I believe in reading books. I'm a listener. I'm a watcher. I watch YouTube. I listen to podcasts. I'm like learning every single day. I'm learning something. And working with a coach who really cares about that. The truth is that a good coach only looks better with your success. So if you're kind of like, "Oh, I don't know about hiring a coach." Well, okay, you don't actually have to hire a coach. I'm just saying that when it came to like the biggest pivots of my life, having someone to walk with who was separate from my spouse, separate from my parents, separate from my peers who are all stuck in the same muck, you know what I mean? Like it really did help to have someone who could just listen as well as share in that goal. And just time and time again, like I really believe in the power of coaching. I have like 3 coaching certifications. I'm kind of nutty about it, but I'm telling you, like, if you've been thinking about possibly like getting your financial ship sailing in a direction you're going to be really proud of, you should definitely start with checking out Myrna's downloads, which we'll make sure we have the link for that around this video or in the show notes if you're listening to this as you go for a walk or wash the dishes or doing what you do. Dear listener, if you love this, and I hope you really did, grab the link and share it with 3 of your friends and let them know that, it's never, ever, ever, ever too late to start with your finances. And Myrna did a great job in this show walking you through the exact steps. And don't forget to subscribe. So you'd be so surprised how many people tune in every single week and forget to hit that subscribe button. You might just miss us and then you'll miss these awesome episodes. And then finally, if you just absolutely love the show, we are always, always so grateful for a honest review. So if you really like the show, go ahead and leave that review because it helps new people decide whether they're going to spend time with us or somewhere else. And we appreciate you very much always. So until our next episode, make sure you do what matters and we'll see you again soon.